Well, it's worth noting that the United Kingdom will not have to leave the EU overnight. The government has to invoke first what's known as Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, and complete legal separation could take 2 years. So the President of the European Council is telling people and businesses not to panic.
I would also like to reassure you that there will be no legal vacuum. Until the United Kingdom formally leaves the European Union, EU law will continue to apply to and within the UK. And by this I mean rights as well as obligations.
Well, let's take a look at what's going on in Brussels, and John Brain is there for us. John, the United Kingdom, the European Union, they've been together for more than 40 years. How do they go about separating now?
Well, the honest truth, Matt, is that nobody knows for certain because no one's ever left the EU before. As you've been explaining, the new Prime Minister, whoever that is, will have to invoke the Lisbon Treaty, and that will start this 2-year process. But the key thing is, what sort of deal is the EU going to be prepared to offer Britain? Because what EU leaders here are adamant about is they don't want Britain to have any favourable trading deal, because they believe that will then encourage groups in other member states who may want to push for their own referenda. They believe that Britain should suffer as a result of this separation, certainly in terms of trade and other agreements. So it could be a very messy divorce, a tortuous process. Even after the 2 years are up, there'll be then several years of negotiations expected to replace all the various trade treaties and agreements that would be overlapped by the EU.
And John, you mentioned it just briefly there. Other countries are looking, well, politicians in other countries are certainly calling for referenda. Which ones are they, and how dangerous is this risk of contagion now?
Well, I think it's considered a very big risk, because bear in mind, recent polling said that the dissatisfaction levels in the EU were 48% in the UK. 48% of people in Britain had an unfavourable view of the European Union. The similar figure in France was 61%, and that's a core member. Now, next year, Marine Le Pen is standing for president. She's the leader of the National Front in France. She said making a departure from the EU will be central to her policy. There's a similar situation in the Netherlands with Geert Wilders from the Freedom Party, who already has called for a referendum there. So there is a rise in Euroscepticism across the entire continent, and EU leaders are very concerned that this British Brexit, as it's being called, could set a precedent.
OK, John Brain in Brussels, thank you very much for your analysis there.